Hey Mallards, it is Saturday. Megan and I just watched a Netflix film called Nighbooks that I thought had been out for a while because Netflix has just literally been like, hey, we know that you find Kristen Ritter attractive, so we want to let you know that she's in this thing for literal months, but apparently it came out 3 days ago. This film is a Sam Raimi production, and it is based on a book, which Megan and I are going to listen to tomorrow, so we'll report back on that, about two kids who get trapped in a weird magical apartment by an evil witch who wants them to tell a scary story every night. And so, like, one of the kids has to write a scary story. Our, like, main boy, the protagonist, has to write a scary story every night in order to appease the witch / the weird apartment. And then eventually, through all sorts of crazy hijinks, you realize that this is actually like the origin of the Hansel and Gretel story, and that the evil witch played by Kristen Ritter is not the original witch. The original witch was the Hansel and Gretel witch, and she ate children. And Kristen Ritter was like held by her and then like beat her and took her power and just decided to become the evil witch for reasons unknown.
But she doesn't eat kids.
Yeah, that's true. She just like
makes them work for her.
And then if they're not doing a good job, turns them into statues.
I think the witch she's lonely because she was abandoned.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
She doesn't want to be alone in the apartment. So I also think that there's a little bit of, if there was like a sequel, we'll find out in the book too, but feels like there's a little bit of the apartment wants people.
Yes.
And so she's kind of doing its work in a way and living her best possible life with her evil unicorn. And honestly, it's a whole mood. Kristen Ritter's amazing and her outfits are
on point.
Incredible.
Every single one of them on point.
I'll wear all of them all the time. Thank you. Bring them to me. The film is surprisingly scary.
Yeah, so it is a PG-rated film, and Megan and I have now sort of realized that ratings have a lot to do with sex and violence and cursing, weirdly.
Cursing, and then, like, blood and gore is also something.
Yeah.
Smoking. There's no smoking in this film, and that's why it's PG.
But there's a lot of jump scares and general horror elements that, like, you're used to from like, I would consider this a pretty scary movie. Like, the visuals are not as frightening as in, like, even the main scary evil witch is, like, mostly made of candy. Aesthetically, she's really, like, disgusting looking and gross, but I thought she was so cool. Like, she's got, like, candy coming out of her face, and all of her teeth are candy corn.
But she would definitely be
cool.
Nightmare fuel. And so would these, like, creepy little insects that are in the film.
Oh, describe those, because those are weird.
They're like a skull with a really exposed vertebra situation. And then, they're kind of, like, hunched, and they've got these big, like,
spider legs?
Spiky legs. Ginny hates them.
Yeah, they're like spider legs, and they like move very spider-like, and they were creepy.
Or like crab-like. They're kind of like scuttly. It's disturbing, and I think it's interesting that kids have like an option if they like horror as a genre, but parents don't want them to see like blood, gore. Also, a lot of horror movies have sex.
Yeah.
And this obviously doesn't have
that.
So it's interesting because it has like the pacing and the jump scares of a horror movie, but where the content, I mean, you're still worried the main characters are going to die all the time.
Well, or at least be turned into statues.
But they're not being like, no one says the word murder.
Yeah.
They're not going to be like blood and guts. So it's PG, I guess.
Yeah, which is mind-blowing.
I'm fine with it. I just, like, I don't think that censorship is necessarily
the end-all, be-all for everything.
Right. But I do think it's interesting what would have frightened me as a child under the age of 13.
Oh, yeah. This would absolutely have frightened me.
Versus something that had, like, Simon and the Homo Sapiens Agenda's PG-13 because of the gays and the kissing of the gays.
Yeah, it is kind of weird to think about it in that sort of way.
Like what age someone should be to watch this film and like have a negative versus positive impact from it.
Listen, there's no guarantee that 33-year-old me will not have nightmares tonight. Specifically about those skull bugs. Yeah. Stop it.
And there's one scene where it like pokes through someone's goggles.
Yeah, and gets like so close to her eye. Like it's like a zoom in of like it like
it's got a lot of horror movie moments, which makes sense because the director also did Evil Dead, so like
yeah, it's got a lot of the classic horror bits that I think like it is really cool because I think that there are kids who are really into horror. I know because I did Halloween Horror Nights tours for years and we'd get younger kids.
Like and having that 13. Sort of introduction to horror would also have made me like horror movies more, I think. It just like parents are worried about their kids seeing certain things and doing certain things.
Yeah. It was really fun. We had a good time. The aesthetics of it are really cool. The library, so in this apartment there's a library that contains like a bunch of scary stories. Like every scary story ever written, basically, but they've already read through them all. But one of the really cool reveals is going into that library, and the entrance is like this whole arch, like an entire little hallway that's just made of arches of books. And I was like, oh, that's pretty. And then you get into the library, and it's just like a massive circular room with a bunch of spiral staircases all the way around, and bookshelves, and then this like window at the top, and it's real pretty.
Clearly.
Yeah, I really liked it. And then the candy house, also really cool. Very creepy. But also like really cool looking. And they do this thing when the kids are eating the candy where their eyes get like candy striped.
That's wild. Never has repercussions.
Yeah. It's apparently like you get mesmerized by the candy. Like that's how you get Hansel and Gretel. Because one of the things, so the Yasmin, who is the character who's like been in the apartment for a while and she knows everything and she's like the cool kid, makes a comment that like Hansel and Gretel is so dumb because who would just eat candy off of a strange house? But then she's the one who like smells it and gets mesmerized by it and starts eating it, and like clearly it's the magic at work and it changes your eyes. But I thought that the characters were cute and relatable, like as a kid or even as a me now, and that the story that they told, like, and how they conquered the witch, and this idea that like even scary stories can have happy endings is kind of like what they drive towards. So like even when everything's, because the point in a scary story is that like everything goes wrong, but even when everything goes wrong, like they can have a happy ending. And I thought that it was really fun and really cute. And there is an invisible cat.
Hairless cat.
Yeah, oh yeah, true. An invisible hairless cat. A cat that can turn visible and invisible inside the apartment, and then also once they get the cat out of the apartment can still do that. So now this kid just owns a magical cat, and that's pretty boss.
True.
So we enjoyed it. We're gonna listen to the audiobook. We'll let you know how the book compares, and I'll see you tomorrow.